Hey guys, great news. I've just got official notice that this episode's been cleared for public release. Just barely cleared. Like somebody in legal stared at it for a long time and finally said, fine, but I want it on record that I don't love this. And honestly, that's about as close to an approval as you're ever going to get in this business. So I'm rolling with it. So now to have clearance, let me tell you about an email that hit my inbox at 10:18 this morning. Subject: quick signature needed. Now, right out of the gate, that phrase is already suspicious. That's like someone walking up to you and saying, hey, don't panic. Nobody's ever said don't panic, followed it with good news. But it gets even better. I open the email. Inside a 67-page redlined contract. Not a draft I've been working on. Nothing that I was tracking. I had never seen this document before. I have no background, no explanation, no procurement file, just one sentence. Can you sign this by COB? A 67-page contract that I know nothing about, with a same-day signature deadline. They really want me to sign it by close of business today. Now, at this point, I have two choices as a contracting professional, right? Option one is to panic. Option two is to respond with sarcasm. So I replied with a calendar invite for 2027. Welcome to the GovCon show.
This broadcast has been cleared for public release, but just barely.
Broadcasting from deep inside the Federal Acquisition Labyrinth, this is the GovCon Show. This show is for acquisition pros, wannabe pros, and procurement insiders who need a place to unpack the chaos. We speak fluent contracting and sarcasm. No clearance required. This is the GovCon Show. And away we go!
Welcome to the GovCon show, where federal acquisition regulation and even the revolutionary FAR overhaul meets the real world. I'm your host, Tim Magnuson. This show is for people who work in the strange high-stakes ecosystem of government contracting. I'm talking to contracts managers, subcontract administrators, procurement professionals, buyers, compliance officers. The people that are quietly preventing the disasters while everyone else is racing towards deadline like it's a game show. Today's episode is called, Can You Just Sign It? And if you've been in the industry longer than about 10 minutes, you've heard that phrase. Because somewhere in every organization, there's someone who believes contracts exist primarily as a signature delivery service, right? Well, today we're going to unpack it. Why that mindset is wrong, why that creates risk, why it burns out good people, and why every contracting professional eventually reads that email and thinks, oh my God, do they actually think I'm really going to sign whatever crosses my desk? If they do, this is going to be a long day. Let's talk about that phrase, quick signature. Oh yes, the myth of the quick signature. There is no such thing. It's a myth. That's like saying quick audit or simple FAR clause. A signature in government contracting is not just a formality, it's a legal event. It binds your company to performance obligations, financial exposures, regulatory requirements, audit rights, termination clauses, data rights, intellectual property ownership, even cybersecurity obligations, and about 40 other things that nobody else in the room is even thinking about. So when someone says, can you just sign this? What they're actually saying to you is, can you assume full legal and financial responsibility for something I haven't even explained to you yet? That's not a quick favor. That's a risk transfer mechanism disguised as urgency. But the funny thing is, most people that send us those emails, they're not malicious. They're not trying to cause chaos. They're just operating in a completely different mental model. And that mental model usually comes from the technical side of the house, right? So maybe we need to talk about the elite culture for a moment. Engineers, scientists, developers, program managers. These are incredibly smart people. I would even say they're brilliant people sometimes. They design spacecraft. They build rockets. They develop advanced technologies for the future. They build very complex software. They solve problems that most of us can't even define. But they often see contracts as merely an administrative function. Paperwork, administrative, forms, signatures. You know, that thing we do at the end. And that's where everything goes sideways, because contracts is not the end of the process. Contracts is the structure of the process. Every contracts professional listening right now has lived this moment. A technical team spends months and months working with a supplier. They talk about scope. They talk about the schedule. They discuss pricing in detail. They feel good. Everyone's aligned and ready to go. And then at the very end, someone says, well, let's send it to the contracts guys so they can sign it. And you open the document and immediately realize, oh, wow, no way this is going to work. This is not even close to acceptable. And now you're the bad guy because you're not supporting the program. You're slowing things down. No, that's not it at all. You're the only person in the room who realizes this deal doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Let's go a little deeper, because some of these requests deserve documentation, not for historical purposes, not because they're best practices, but as cautionary tales, right? Let's talk about a few examples. Example one, I think I've got example one in email. Hey, Tim, a quick note. We just need you to sign this NDA so we can onboard a vendor. Now, that sounds a little harmless, right? Until you realize that the NDA includes broad data rights grants, right? Export control obligations and export control exposures, unlimited use clauses, and of course, buried on page 9, you find the totally unacceptable indemnification language. Now suddenly, this just isn't an NDA. This is a strategic risk decision wrapped in a friendly email. So in your lap is now sitting a big risk management event. Example 2. Hey, Tim, will you please sign the attached subcontract mod? I told the supplier we were good to go. Let's unpack that. That sentence contains 3 separate fires. First, the contracts office has not even looked at the mod, right? Second, the supplier's already been told it's approved and we're good to go. Third, they just created a negotiation disaster. You have zero negotiating leverage. Congratulations, You just inherited a problem that already has momentum. One more example. Let's see here. This one's my favorite. Hey, Tim, please sign. Legal has already looked at it. Now, that one is fascinating. Every time I see that one, the same thought pops into my head. Great. That's helpful. Because legal review is very valuable, but legal review does not replace the procurement review, right? I mean, contracts has to verify flow-down clauses, cost and pricing structure, the compliance with all the subcontract requirements, right? All the regulatory requirements. Now, legal is great. Legal protects against lawsuits. Contracts protects against bad procurement decisions. And those are not the same thing. There's one last example. I call this one the silent time bomb because you don't see it coming. Hey, this has already been in the works for a while. Been performing for a few weeks. We just need to get the paperwork signed. Translation: we've made commitments without authorization. Now we need you to legitimize it, right? That's not contracting. That's retroactive justification with a signature request attached to it. Let's talk about something people don't fully appreciate, and that is signature authority. Not everybody in the company has it. And the people who do, they're not just signing paper. They're bonding the company, accepting legal liability, certifying compliance, committing their company resources. Signature authority is delegated, it's controlled, it's audited. So when someone says, just sign it so we can move forward, what they're really asking you to do is to take ownership of this entire situation and do it right now, without contacts, without a review process, without any analysis, without any documentation. That's not how we survive our procurement audits. But it is how audit findings happen, which brings me to the topic of the CPSR reality. Let's talk about CPSR audits for a moment, because CPSR auditors absolutely love situations where documents were signed without proper review. They live for it. If an auditor opens your file and sees late approvals, signatures before approvals, unexplained decisions, missing documents, dates that don't align with the procurement process, and they don't say, probably they were just busy. Well, they start asking questions immediately, lots of questions. And those questions tend to lead to findings. They say, walk me through how this decision was made. And now you're explaining why something was signed before it was understood. That's how you go from one quick signature to a formal finding in your CPSR report, which means one rush signature can create a compliance issue that shows up months later during an audit. Now, here's the deeper problem with the just sign it culture. It's not just about compliance. This isn't just a process problem. It's an organizational cultural issue. This kind of stuff is a major company culture problem. If your organization believes contracts is a checkpoint, a formality, a signature function, then your procurement system is already very fragile. You may not know it yet, but contracts professionals are not there to slow things down. They're there to protect the program and to prevent expensive mistakes. They protect against bad scope language. vague requirements that are pricing traps, missing flow-down clauses, intellectual property exposure issues, even regulatory violations. That's what we protect against, but that doesn't mean we're slowing down the process. And sometimes that protection sounds like, we can't sign this yet. We need to fix this before it gets signed. Which nobody likes to hear that. But let me be clear. This is not obstruction. It's not slowing things down. This is our professional responsibility. Suppose we flip the situation around. Imagine contracts sending emails like this. Hey, can you just build this satellite component by close of business? Or, I told the customer the system works. Can you just make sure that's true? Here's a good one, my personal favorite. Don't worry about testing. I eyeballed the code. Everything looks fine. Can you imagine how they would react if we sent those kinds of emails? Engineering would lose their minds because they understand their work requires rigor, validation of processes, but so do ours. Contracts work is exactly the same. So let's go back to that email I started the episode with. That 67-page red-lined contract, the request for signature by close of business, the outcome, it was not a signature. It was a meeting. We scheduled a meeting. We walked through what changed, what was agreed to, what risk actually existed. And guess what? Multiple sections had to be rewritten because that's the job. That's what happens when contracts is brought in after the fact. Okay, final thoughts. Look, everyone in this industry works under pressure. Deadlines, customers, revenue, indirect rates, program milestones. I get it. But the procurement system only works if the people respect the process. Contracts is not here to rubber stamp decisions. We're not there to make sure we're there to make sure the decisions actually make sense, that they're documented, and that they're defensible. Because one day someone's going to open a file and ask, well, why was this done this way? And your answer better not be, because I got an email one morning that had the subject of, can you just sign this? And they said it had to be done that day. If this episode has hit a little close to home, good. Send it to someone who's ever written quick signature needed. And if this earned a spot in your rotation, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to make more straight talk like this, head over to contractsclassroom.com or govconadvisorygroup.com. And the next time you're about to send the email asking one to just sign it, pause for a second, add some context, explain the situation, and maybe loop contracts in a little earlier. Because signatures, they're not shortcuts. They're commitments. Until next time, read the clause, read all the attachments, and don't sign something you wouldn't want to explain later. See you next time on the GovCon Show.
If today's episode sounded a little too familiar, that's probably a sign. Until next time, keep your files tight, your logic tighter. Remember, if your compliance approach is built on checking boxes, you're building risk. We'll see you next time on the GovCon Show.
This broadcast has been cleared for public release, but just barely.